Hello, I'm Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hi, yes. I'm on the
Positive
screen behind
reviews.
you.
Yes, you are. You're behind me on my screen, and ABC News is over the other one. So,
Oh, yes. And by the way, I have no control over net latency. So there you have it.
okay. Everybody knows what you mean by that. So, thank you very much.
Well, okay. Net latency contributes to pauses that might take place seemingly awkwardly in between the end of one person talking and the beginning of another person talking.
So, is this
So
in general in life or
it,
only on the internet?
only on the internet, and in this particular case, I have a slow connection compared to most people that live in a urban, highly populated area. My connection would be considered one bump up from dial-up.
Well, we're lucky to be able to speak to Mike in this way. Hello, Mike.
Yes, yes, and it helps with the latency thing if you speak very phonetically.
Yes. Okay, so there were a number of things to discuss today. There were two important meetings in Grants Pass City and the county. Notice, people in Cave Junction, how careful I am. That people say, the city, the city. Hey, wait a minute. There's two cities in Josephine County. One of them is IV. Well, I'm sorry, one of them is Cave Junction. Yes. Yes, we try to be sort of politically, well, I try to be politically correct. Mike doesn't bother. But yeah, we do try
Yes,
to
that's right.
keep that in mind. One of the important meetings was this morning. It's the weekly business session with the commissioners, and the other one was one I just got out of, and it's still happening at this moment because we're live at 7 o'clock, and that's the Grants Pass City Council. Um, there were a number of One of the nice things about this show is that there are a number of small things that would never make it into a 3-minute, 2-minute, 30-second video, but we have a chance to tell you about this because it's sort of a recurring theme. And one of the things that happens is Mike goes on to social media, and there's just these people who are pulling at him and pulling him, and I just don't understand anything that you're saying. And you know that they understand you. They're just being hard to get along with. Like, what was that one? What was the title that I had on that one? It was making fun of something that the sheriff had said as I'm sorry, Your Honor, I don't have any evidence, but I have a gut feeling that this guy
Oh,
is
oh,
guilty.
yes, yes,
And,
right.
and, and one of the people on the internet was saying, well, I looked through the video several times and I never saw that
Yes.
phrase.
That was never mentioned ever in
Really?
there.
Really? Okay, well, good detective work there on your part there, pal. Really, never saw that phrase. Well, another one came up, and it's a small thing, but I think worth mentioning, is David Reeves. Okay, David Reeves in the city, I think he's assistant city manager. I think that's what he is. He's one of those guys where it doesn't rise to the level of Cheryl Walker kind of lying. Okay, it's not that bad, but it's one of those things where ever there's a monkey wrench that can be thrown into the concept of humans trying to talk with each other. David Reeves is right there, buddy. I'll give you my favorite David Reeves story. One of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This guy. We were at this meeting where we were talking about. Oh yeah. Well, here, yeah, I got to scratch my. Why don't you just zoom in on this? Geez, every time I scratch my face, yeah, I'm doing that too. Okay, so I was at this meeting, this Grants Pass City Council, and they were talking about the hops field. They were going to turn this big area into lots of kids playing soccer or something. And I don't play soccer personally or football, and I don't have any kids that are that age or any that I know of. But I'm concerned about my community. I do care, and it especially bothers me when I hear somebody give me a line of blather, right? So there were some questions about whether this was going to be a safe place to do anything, because there was a lot of evidence that there were toxic chemicals under the ground. Really? Well, that's pleasant. Let's have the kids play there. And so David Reeves was
Mm-hmm.
explaining to this committee that was open to people and me bringing the camera because they were a committee of the government, and government committees are open to the public. And so I was there recording, and I said, well, apparently there are like three or four places on this big field that could potentially be some kind of problem. And David Reeves is like, yeah, well, so, what's your point? You know, that kind of attitude. That's always nice in a public servant. And I said, well, you just have said that you tested one of them. Now I understand that you're not made out of money, the city isn't, but he says, well, yeah, we've tested that one, and so now we can declare the entire field. I'm paraphrasing. It's been a couple of years. We can now declare the entire field as safe.
Mm-hmm.
You've tested one of the 3 or 4 locations, and you can declare the entire field as safe? And his answer was, all right then, Mr. Matthews, where's your test?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
You should have known better than to open your mouth without bringing your test in.
That's exactly right. That's David Reeves. That's classic David Reeves. So just a small thing at today's meeting, I changed the location of my camera at city council meetings because they've moved things around, and now I'm always getting just the back of a person's head, and that's not really attractive video. So I talked with the mayor, and it's inside baseball, but that's one of the reasons we do this show. That's why it's called Dale and Mike Inside Baseball. No, it's Inside News. Well, you get the point. So I asked him if I could change slightly. Yes, if I could slightly change the location of the camera to a place where I could see just a little bit better what was happening. And it was a little further away, but we have a way to deal with the audio on that. And the mayor's like, sure. I mean, he wasn't worried it was going to fall over and burst into flames. And so I also mentioned it to the police chief because he was there and I wanted to be sure. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. If there was a fire chief there, I would have asked him too, you know, because of the fire danger from an inanimate object. Anyway, so I've been doing that, and I checked this 2 weeks later because they meet every 2 weeks about, is this still okay? Yeah, that's fine. You're fine. And so now it's been a month and a half. David Reeves, he sees this camera has changed location from when he last looked. So he comes up to, you're going to have to move that camera right away because that's just not the proper place. I said, look, I've already talked about it with the mayor a couple of times, and it's going to be okay. Well, we'll just see about that. That's the kind of guy David Reeves is. Well, we'll just see about, Mr. Matthews, we're not placing cameras. No, it was Cheryl Walker saying to Sandy, because we're not placing cameras on the backs of chairs today. Oh, please, just be a human being. Let's call the police. So he goes up to the mayor. I can't hear what he's saying, but the mayor's like, ah. So he comes over to me and he says, listen, you know, and David Reeves is hovering on there. Oh, what's going to be done about this horrible situation? And so it's like, there's no problem, buddy. Get lost. Go find something to do to earn your salary. And so he says, the mayor wisely says, well, I guess I'll just leave it up to the police chief. So David Reeves goes over and he's talking about the police chief, and I walked up to Bill Landis and I said, so, you know, I put my camera over here. He's like, yeah, okay. And I said, do you think it'll cause any problem?
So what?
And Bill Landis says, well, aside from falling over and bursting into flames, I don't think it'll cause any problems.
Yes.
So remember this.
It's one of those incendiary cameras.
That's what it is, because of my incendiary rhetoric. So that's a name to remember, is David Reeves, the monkey wrench in the fabric. No, you can't put a monkey wrench in fabric. The monkey wrench in the machinery of human understanding. David Reeves.
Yes, there you go.
So, but Mike's been seeing some of those same kind of people on social media. Do you want to tell us at least one funny story about that, Mike?
You know, I don't know. You know what?
He's so shy.
There's always somebody coming in there saying something silly, and it's usually because they don't have a good argument, and so they come off the wall with something crazy. You know, it's been fairly quiet here lately. Well, I mean, there was almost a brawl today
Oh,
in the Josephine County politics room, but it was over something stupid that, quite frankly, I wasn't really paying much attention to, beside the admin guy stepping in to say, "Hey, knock it off." Uh, but I mean, this is the kind of stuff. It's the same kind of stuff that happens. Usually, someone will come in there, and of course, my view of it is it's typically an anti-levy person who's wanting to make an emotional argument to what is basically a
anti-levy?
nuts and bolts issue.
Anti-levy?
I'm sorry, pro-levy. Did I say anti-levy? What I meant
You
was
did.
pro-levy. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way that I could say anti. They were anti no levy. Yes,
Oh,
that's what those
oh, oh, oh,
people
we're
are.
being so politically
Yes.
correct. There's,
Yes. No. What I'm trying to do is, they have decided that the word anti. I mean, this is political correctness taken to the extreme. The anti is the only thing that they have to be used against you. So you're being negative.
no, wait a
You're
minute. These guys are on our side. They're on our
anti-levy.
side, and we're going to vote against a levy. There's pro-levy people. They're not shy about
Right.
saying we're for the levy. And so the people who are on our side,
Right.
on the anti-levy side, are saying, "Oh, don't call it anti-levy because people might think, what? Really? No,
Yeah.
they're not
No.
serious.
No.
They can't be
No.
serious."
What you have to do is you don't kiss these people's rear ends. Come on. uh, but
They're trying to put the best foot forward. Okay.
people are hypersensitive about that, and they shouldn't be. Hey, guess it. I'm anti-levy. If it makes you feel better to call me negative, then fine, whatever.
You're negative. That makes me
Uh,
feel so much
yeah.
better. Right.
Well, and I was trying to think of what could I come up with that puts an anti in front of whatever they are.
Now we're slightly teasing
stupid.
people who are sensitive about
Yes.
this and trying to get as
Yes.
many
No.
votes as possible. And we do understand
No.
that you're trying to be politically correct, but come on. Can we use the English language? We really can't,
Well,
can we?
listen.
On this show,
political
yes.
correctness. Political correctness is a weapon, and it's the refuge of those who have no argument. So stick to the argument. I mean, if you think your argument is good, use it.
That's a great thing to bring up
Don't come
because
and say you're anti.
but it's a great argument to bring up
That's
because
just
it's a
stupid.
great thing to bring up because in previous levy attempts, I've had people say to me, "Well, it says in here that I can put a statement in the voter's pamphlet." I said, "Yeah, it's called an argument." "Oh, I don't want it to be called an argument." What? That's the technical. Well, then I
No.
seem argumentative. Oh, please. What?
Well, then you've already lost.
That's right.
You have already lost.
That's right.
If that's what you're coming into the room with, because guess what? The other side has no such feeling about your feelings.
Yes.
Okay?
Well,
So
can't we
just
call it a
get
statement?
on
Do we
with
have
it.
to call it an
It
argument?
is an argument.
Get over yourself. What's the matter with you? Statement versus argument. Come on. You're right. The other
Yes,
side.
and take it to the hilt.
Yeah.
Take it to the hilt. And the hilt, by the way, is that little thing at the end of the sword that stops your hand from going into the guy's body when you
Oh,
run
I
him
thought you were
through.
talking about Dale Matthews and his ilk.
Oh, yeah, well, that's different.
Yeah, the ilk club, right?
No, no. If you're going to be a pansy, then just make an analysis of which side do you think is the loser and get on that side, because that's what you are.
We can, in this show, make fun of people like Diane Mackin and make fun of people like David Reeves and all three commissioners. And so, hey, if you don't like it, you're public figures, and so too bad for you. Really, I mean, and I am not shy about naming names of people or pills to work with. There's nowhere else while you're here. Well,
Well,
that Terry Wharton is a secretary in the commissioner's office. We must never say anything bad about a county employee. She's a pill. She's hard to work with. Why would you put somebody like that in a public service? Well, why would you elect any of those people? So that answers itself.
well, you know what? I personally believe that there ought to be a website that lists pictures and names of all of these people who are in public service who take on this attitude of being difficult to deal with. Because you know what? You should not be working for the county. If you're one of those people who's looking for a way to stop somebody from doing something constructive, if you're one of those people, you don't belong in government. You really don't. You should be fired, and your superiors should be looking for exactly that type of attitude so that they can fire people like you. Because,
Wow. Cool.
well,
Go for it, Mike.
listen, why not? I mean, those people have no place in public service at all. You're a leech. That's who you are.
Well, and now,
You're
why are
sucking
you
on the public trough, and you're getting paid 5 times what you're worth to do your job.
sucking on the public trough? Why are you being careful about what you say here, Mike? Tell people what you really think.
No, listen, I just don't like people like that, and I think that they should go, work someplace else and let people who actually want to help people work in public service.
Good for you. Well, I took a similar attitude at this morning's weekly business session, and in using that method of tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. I'll try not to be too repetitive. But what had happened leading into this is that for some reason, over the past couple of weeks, Simon Hare and Cheryl Walker have been just lighting into the public. I mean, everybody that gets up, apparently they've got to say something about them, and I'm one of their favorite targets because I'm the one usually with the most information about them, and it's on a video camera. And what can they do to fight against that except to claim that somehow the video camera is wrong? Keith Heck tried that. And so Cheryl Walker and Simon Hare have been saying in the last couple of weekly business sessions, it happens every week, and that, well, you must spend all week long, Mr. Matthews, thinking up new lies. I'm the one with the videotape. Is the videotape lying to you? Do you really think it's like Cheryl's, voices in her mind saying, "No, voters pamphlet, please, we're begging you"? I mean, in that little whiny voice too. How is it possible that this camera that's recording what you're saying is not telling the truth? And I relate what it says. So based on the fact that this is what they've been saying, I thought, well, how about if we just go ahead and try to set the record straight, and we'll see. One of my goals, if I have a goal, is to tuck them down to zero. And that is, once you finish, they just have nothing to say. And if there's anything to say, it's going to be kind of like useless blather. You be the judge of whether you felt that I handled, and was I screaming and yelling and running around the room yelling woot woot? You just check out for yourself.
Dale Matthews, Grants Pass. Lately, the commissioners have taken to referring to citizens as saying things that were not honest. It's a new tactic. Not working out very well, partly because the commissioners don't want to be recognized by SOS and Cuffs as supporting the levy. They don't want your endorsement. They don't want you talking about it because you have a reputation for not being very honest, and your reputation in the county is really low. They don't want you involved. So here's 3 examples. A couple of weeks ago, Cheryl Walker somehow came up with the idea that Sandy Casanelli, when she was a commissioner, was involved in handing out economic development money to a friend. She made it up. It's not true. It's a lie. But when pressed for any answers to where did that number come from, why did you say that, she's not saying anything now. She won't say anything after I'm done. My question to Commissioner Walker, as she can finish writing, is that after I'm done, why don't you spend some time explaining to us where you pulled that number out of? How you came up with that information? It's false. Commissioner Heck tried to dispute the fact that videotape can record him correctly. He told everybody, including department heads, that he never said something. What he said was really smart, but it really wasn't that awful. It was the denial that created the big problem. He was caught, and there's no getting out of that, not ever. It will follow you forever as long as you're in office. I don't know how you can hold your head up, because you said that we had distorted what you had said, and we'd inserted words into your mouth. Absolutely not true. So as far as lying, as Cheryl Walker said last time, you probably spend all week coming up with new lies. No, no, you guys can't say that. And then Commissioner Hare. Commissioner Hare at the last budget meeting had told, I had gotten up and said, you know, you're just about to finish this budget meeting. Commissioner Harris said that the sheriff had been padding his budget. You're the budget committee. Aren't you even going to look at that? And Commissioner Hare decided to say during that meeting, I never said that. Well, this is a really simple job for me. I had the tape. So I came to the next weekly business session to share the information with people. And what did Commissioner Hare do? He cut the power rather than having people hear that he had lied. So for the three of you to suggest that we're the liars, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Thank you. And bringing it back to the board.
I have several things I'd like to say, but I think I'm just going to summarize them in this manner, in that anyone can come here to our weekly business session and during the public comment period address the board. This is a board meeting, and we have provided in our county that each citizen has 3 minutes to address the board. Some people take advantage of that, thinking it's time to verbally assault citizens in the community or organizations or members of this board. And I think it is inappropriate and a waste of time. I think that, you know, calling people names, calling people things that are not true, taking information and twisting it is a huge disservice to our county.
But that's the whole reason I said this, is because that's what she was doing.
Well, some people take the opportunity of their time to speak here and verbally assault people and say false things about them. Oh, really? Because that's funny. Isn't that what Dale just said? Right. You know, but instead, it's you that did it. You're the one who threw an allegation, false allegation, out in front of everybody, saying that Sandy Casanelli had done this thing for which she, you know, I guess, you know, it's just sad. I'm really surprised that she said anything. Neither Simon or Keith Heck said anything behind
there was nothing that
they were like those were. Yeah. Well, those were bad chapters in their life, and they wanted to leave them behind. But Cheryl's emotions got the better of her, and she was writing furiously, and she had to come up with something. And of course, this was not all of it. She went on for quite some time.
Oh, no, we can talk about what she said. The point I was going to try to go back to is. There's a theory in international negotiations. Oh boy, turn it off. Oh, this is going to be boring. No, hopefully not. It's in international negotiations. It's also in union negotiations, negotiations of all kinds, even between a husband and a wife. Mm-hmm. And it's called the prisoner's dilemma. It's a famous example from game theory. And the idea is, I won't bore you with the entire thing. This is enough to bore you with. The idea is that when the person that you're negotiating, if it's just a one-time deal, you never know how it's going to turn out. But if you're going to be there negotiating again and again and again and again, and you're trying to end up with results that you can both live with, then what you do is when the other person's reasonable and cooperative, you're reasonable and cooperative to the best of your ability. When the other person acts like a pill, like David Reeves, then you come back hard and you make them wish they had not done that. And right. So what I did in this case is 2 weeks in a row. So it wasn't going to stop. It was a trend at that point, a short trend. Both Cheryl and Simon were calling us, the people in the audience, and me also, liars. Oh, you're just making it all up. Everything's a lie. You're just nothing but, it's like in a schoolyard. Well, I'm rubber and you're glue. Really? Is this where we are? You got to say, oh, everyone's a liar but me. So I thought, okay, let's see if we can just put an end to this. One, here's a perfect example, Cheryl Walker, about how you just lied. That you used your microphone and your pay to lie to people about a citizen who was completely made up. It was laughable because it was exactly the opposite of what she said. Keith Heck, said that Mike Jones personally had inserted words into his mouth, and that was completely wrong. And then Simon Hare, rather than hear the truth said at a meeting, which I had it on tape, he cut the power. Well, there's a misuse of power.
Yes, and I think it's worth noting, it's worth pointing out that in the case of somebody like Cheryl Walker, who is a sitting commissioner, her words are carrying a little bit more weight than just somebody who comes in there and has the privilege of speaking for 3 minutes.
The privilege.
So when Sandy comes in there and says something, and then Cheryl waits for her protected time period to launch into her because she doesn't like what she said about So Ready. She launches into her and throws this allegation out there that's a big deal.
And no wonder she doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Oh, that's the past. She actually said that. Well, that was in the past. Yeah,
yes.
That was like 2 weeks ago, pal.
Yes.
And so now that's in the dim, dark past.
Well, and there is another thing. She hasn't said anything about it. She didn't apologize to Sandy Casanelli for getting that wrong. She hasn't doubled down, but she hasn't said anything. And I think that you know what? So I don't feel sorry for her if Dale takes a chunk out of her.
Oh, well, it wasn't just a mistake. She had to completely make this up out of nothing. She pulled this out of a place that we don't talk about on family television. And it was completely made up and comical because Sandy was actually the one person who really was not happy about this deal, and certainly that guy was not her friend. So in order to influence your feelings about Sandy Casanelli, it's not the first time I've seen this, she just told a blatant, complete, out-and-out, nothing, flat-out lie. Now, how do you deal with that in a real pleasant way? I mean, I tried to maintain just a, here's the facts kind of attitude. But if you were to talk with them later, they'd probably be convinced, as Keith Heck was recently with Judy Aarons, that I was screaming. Didn't seem like screaming. So tell us, so what happened in a previous meeting with Cheryl Walker? Is she's gone through 3 things, and why don't you tell us about the third one, if you will, Mike? One of them was that people were criticizing her, and she wrapped herself in the flag. Why, I'm I'm very patriotic. Why, my whole family is patriotic. And boy, look at, and she just wrapped herself in a flag and jumped overboard. We're still wearing the flag. Look how amazing And then she did another one another time where she was talking about my family, and she started to get kind of teary about my family, and no one's criticizing your family. But she decided to say that they were. It's coming out of nowhere. I'm sitting next to Mike and I'm going, why is she talking about her family? Right. Now, this was the third one. Tell us about what happened this time. Her answer to this big thing was to go where? This is great.
Yes. Okay, you know what? Anybody who follows politics to any great degree understands how much of a joke it is when the other side whips out, think of the children, and they try to get you, and it was pathetic. She clearly does not pay any attention to what goes on in talk radio or media where they're talking about politics, because she went full bore on. It was the only defense she had. She could not come back substantively. So she attacked us as somehow we're tearing the community down, and Sandy had gotten up and talked against the levy, so she thought, well, yeah, I'll attack that. And people who want to vote no on the levy, they're against the children. They're for homeless children in the streets with no food and no shoes on their feet, and et cetera, and went on and on, and it was nearly hysterical.
Well, I'm in the audience. This is not very nice. I admit it's not very nice. And I'm going like, just not making any noises, but just rubbing my eyes like, oh no, the children. And apparently Sandy Casanelli was in the back going like, and Cheryl's still going on. I mean, she could probably see me over there in the corner, and maybe Sandy too. And she's going on and on and on. This is despicable, in my opinion. To use and she went on twice as long. I mean, she was like, I timed it, and it was like she took about 6 or 7 minutes to explain how dedicated she is to the children. Also, next time it'll be kittens plus sunshine.
Yeah. Right, yes. I am dedicated. I love the children, and you don't. And that's the thing that you're constantly beat over the head with. Usually by extreme left-winger people who are convinced that they care about everybody and everything more than you do.
Well,
and that's the club that they're going to beat you with.
What she did with the nuisance ordinances is she actually got up off of the dais. She went down to the podium to speak as a citizen, and she accused all the people who were questioning the nuisance ordinances. Remember the ones we voted down 80% to 20? That's a huge defeat for these guys. She accused us all of being in favor of rats. That's what's wrong with it. See, that's the world that Cheryl Walker lives in. If you don't vote along with her, then you're in favor of rats, and you're in favor of those rats biting and carrying off the children.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and when she says stuff like that, and when she makes up these lies, like about Sandy Casanelli and this So Ready deal,
it was a lie.
It makes you question everything else.
Go ahead. Sorry, the latency.
Sorry. Yes, it makes you suspect. It makes you suspect her. Any time that she says just about anything. Now, today she said, well, and this was part of her little, fit of rage about how we don't care about the children, and she does. She was saying that, the timber money that came in was 2-point-something million, and the Secure Rural Schools funding was 4.6 million or something like that, and that they were going to subtract the timber money from that. So all told, they were only going to get the 4.6, and it was going to be, the timber money plus the Secure Rural Schools money would add up to the 4.6, instead of when we thought we were going to get 4.6 plus 2 point whatever. And so I need now to have verification of that from somebody else who's actually credible.
Because maybe it's true, but on the other hand, when you're faced with somebody who has, we've proven that she lied. There's just no debate about that, and she has no explanation for why she said that. Once we got each of the 3 commissioners into a spot where the reason they couldn't say anything was because it's absolutely true. And now that this person's lied to you once, are you going to believe them the second time? Even if they're telling you the truth, it's a good idea to check that out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, yes, and so when Cheryl Walker, and really all 3 commissioners, but mostly Cheryl Walker and Simon Hare have said that the Internal Services Fund is that's the law. We don't have any choice. We have to do it. No, and by the way, even if it wasn't the law, we would do it because it's the prudent thing that every business person understands that you must do. Of course, that's a bunch of hooey. But anyway, so I'm clicking around social media today, and I noticed somebody posted, "Hey, here's the Internal Service Funds law," and they OR 294-343. And I said, "That's fantastic. We've been talking about finding this law for a long period of time," and so finally somebody went and looked it up, and here it is on the screen here. And of course, you can just Google OR 294.343 and come up with it. And if you read it there, and you probably can't see this on the screen because it's, but it says a municipal corporation may. Yeah, you can't read. Yes, I figured you probably couldn't. But as we suspected long ago, this is not a law that forces counties to use the Internal Services Fund. And if of course, we already knew that this indeed wasn't that kind of law, because if that were the case, every county in Oregon would have an ISF, and they don't.
This is one of the bones of contention with a number of people about the levy. Not everybody, but maybe half, I don't know, are saying, now wait a minute, we don't want any of this money going through the hands of the commissioners. We don't trust them. Well, this video clip it's a perfect example. They just flat out lie to you, and they have no explanation, and they're never going to have an explanation. They can't. What Keith X says, a videotape recorder can't accurately record him? Really? Okay, so that's a paraphrase. So when you know you can't depend on them, even the CUFS people and the SOS people said, don't endorse this levy. This is a slap in the face to the commissioners. We don't want your support. Just don't talk about it. They can't help it. They do it anyway. But we'd really rather that you don't say anything, because people don't trust you. This is what the $25,000 and Mike would have told you for free. We don't trust these commissioners because they lie to us, and we've now proven to you that they, these are just 3 examples, but do you need any more? We've got plenty.
Yeah. Well, and today, was full of this kind of stuff. J.J. Schofield was there again, talking about some new person they hired. Why are we continuing to hire new people all the time, for crying out loud? There's just no end to the money that we have for this sort of thing. And guess what? Listen, there is a little bit of leeway. For the commissioners. They don't have to spend the money on hiring the new person. They could just as easily give that money to the sheriff's department if they so choose. Especially if the money that's paying for this new person is coming out of the general fund.
This is the same J.J. Schofield who, because we're going to do a thing about the elected officials compensation committee, believe me, we will. But this is the same J.J. Schofield is pushing really hard for the idea of we've got to pay these elected officials more money, or we won't continue to hang on to the excellent elected officials we now have. Let me repeat that, because that's outrageous. These 3 commissioners are so wonderful that if we don't pay more money to elected officials, why, we're going to end up with a lower quality. JJ, a lower quality?
Yeah. Wow. I'd hate to see that. Boy, we better pay them more money right now.
Do you remember that? Remember that
worse in
movie
there
with Michael Keaton, where he needs a clone of himself, and when he makes a clone, that one's about half as smart.
Yes.
And that clone makes a clone, and that clone, by the time they end up with the last guy, the guy can't wear a hat.
Well, no, the problem was, see, they made a copy, and then they copied the original again. They made like 2 copies of the original, and then they decided to make a copy of the third guy, but the third guy was a copy of a copy. So then, you start getting a losing resolution.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So this J.J. Schofield is saying we need to compare counties of similar size and not similar economic income. So that's why when you look at a county commissioner, they're making 3 times more than you are, and they can't count the number of floors in a building. Or they give money away to a project that says we're going to put a plaque on a rock, and that's going to generate 90 jobs. Woohoo! That looks like a good... This is why we're ending up with these guys. That's why we do this show. So you'll say, no, wait a minute. Who are we going to choose? Brother, I don't have an answer for you about that. But at least we can tell you what it is they're doing.